Hey ladies and gentlemen, my name is Todd. Thank you very much for tuning into my video today. This is such an important video, guys. We are going to go into the specific parameters of the Sasquatch skull. Profound, impressive evidence that substantiates how incredibly enormous and big these Sasquatch are. It's all based on preposterous allegations that have been put against me. People alleging that my head is in this Sasquatch, but I'm so grateful they did this because me and two other independent researchers have proven something that is so incredibly significant. It's going to blow your mind today. Get ready to be absolutely astonished and amazed by what we've discovered about Sasquatch based on this new analysis. Stay tuned. This video brings up some really important questions. Number one on my mind is, if the Sasquatch are truly this disproportionate in the skull, in the size, how is it possible that the DNA, full genome genetic analysis has been done of the Sasquatch, and they have successfully bred with human beings? This is literally like breeding a Rottweiler with a Chihuahua. We're talking sizes. I know that the Sasquatch are only about 9 feet tall males, as opposed to someone like myself who's about 6'3". But when you talk about, so it's only a 3 foot difference, you'd say, but then the shoulder width, the actual overall weight, Sasquatch weighed at 900 pounds. Someone like myself at 6'3", which is a little proportionately big as compared to the average human being, I weigh in at no more than 220 pounds. So although it's 3 feet taller, you're talking almost 4 times, at least 3.5 times the actual weight, which is so significant. And we're going to get into the proportions today because we have outstanding evidence based on facts that is really undeniable. Nobody can contest these things. There's been all this crap going around about all these different ridiculous little things we're going to get into today. But again, I'm grateful for them because they allowed us to do an analysis that led to this incredible discovery. So let's start with this piece of artistic work from Amanda Joseph. So this was done by Amanda Joseph. She is a professional artist. As you can see here, some of her artwork. She's professionally, artistically trained. You can see this is some people that she's drawn. And this is really important because all artists are aware and know, especially when it comes to specific human proportions. Here's her drawing of Jake that we're going to do an analysis today of. But so she was very curious about the proportions of the Sasquatch faces recorded by me, Todd Standing. So she began by making technical drawings of different faces from around the world, so different ethnicities, and methodically drew each picture, making sure that their right eye would fit into a 2-centimeter space. So every right eye is going to match up to this right eye of the Sasquatch. Now, later on, we're going to talk about specific proportions, but as you can see, she's drawn different people from different races. Here's Ernest Borgnine. Just an Aboriginal lady. So she's doing different races and showing all these human proportions, as you can see, are not even precise, but they're extremely close. Not identical, but so close that the skulls would be exceptionally similar. Doesn't matter race, white, Asian, black, all these proportions, all these right eyes, you're going to see she's done it on this graphing paper and measured them. Here's a Native American to be very specific about the results that she's going to precipitate right now. So even as to the point where she's actually got Michael Shannon here, a celebrity who has strange proportions. So when you line up the eyes, it becomes obvious. Video 2, Jake's face, is very strange proportions, to say the least. So here, again, the eye, this Sasquatch eye, is not matching. Look how far out it is. So these are human proportions that she's matched up here. And the human proportions are pretty much spot on. Right in this specific graph paper, male, female, black, white, Asian, the eyes are matching up very, very well with very minuscule differences. Here's a Native American. So matching up. But so a human eye always develop at similar distance apart, no matter the race of the human. It's proportional rule based on the evolution of our modern human skull. This is a fact known to artists all over the world. If you mess up these proportions, your artwork will look odd. So here it is again, different human beings, matching up the right eye again, and they're matching Asian, black, white, doesn't matter, matching up, Native American, all over the world. People that have been separated by, thousands of years of evolution that show real phenotypical differences are all matching up, and their skulls would match up significantly. Now look at when you put Jake in here. He's literally off by a whole other proportion. Here's the purple section. You can see it's literally completely out. Fully out a whole section. Again, you're matching up the eye sizes, which that Sasquatch's eye is significantly larger than these people, and still the proportions are so out of whack. It would be preposterous to merge a human being's face into this completely different species. Totally different. My proportions would match up here and would blow out just like these proportions are completely blowing out. Again, when you match the eye size, which I'm going to illustrate, is absolutely ridiculous. There's the original photograph, completely blown out of proportion the eyes. So based on these measurements, it is her opinion that it's simply impossible for Sasquatch in video 5 to be a human in a costume. I agree wholeheartedly. Even remember, Sasquatch, anybody who knows about the species, they have a 17-inch track. No one's ever said a Sasquatch was the size of a human being. They're enormous, absolutely enormous. So a legitimate piece of footage like you're watching here, to morph a human being's head to it, is preposterous. And as you might know very well, these are glasses I picked up in a store. These glasses fit my face like they fit pretty much every human being on the planet, because who doesn't have gigantism of some kind, because I have natural human proportions. Now what I'm going to show, you might have seen this before, but just let it play. There's a longer video that substantiates the truth behind this analysis I did to show how ridiculously enormous the head of this Sasquatch was. And I'm telling you, by my eyewitness accounting, you could watch the video in its entirety. He was so big. He was like 9 feet tall, in excess of 700 pounds, absolutely enormous. But let me give you some perspective before we go into the next analysis that is so very important. So watch this, guys.
If you took that Rocky Mountain Douglas fir needle and pushed it back to where the Sasquatch head is, you should decrease the size by, I said, 10 to 15%. So to err on the side of conservative, I've decreased it by just 10%, and that's what the little green marker is. And then you can see the green markers that go all the way across. You'll notice that there are 14 of them. 14 1-inch green markers. That Sasquatch was enormous, in case you were wondering. He was absolutely gigantic. You'll see there that his nose alone is 3 inches wide, which is just totally amazing. The separation between his eyes is approximately 8 inches, and as you can see in this photograph of me, I've measured the width of my head, just using me as an example, because I don't want to give any credence to the what do I even call him? The idiot that morphed my head into a Sasquatch.
I have to admit, I made some mistakes doing that analysis. And I knew I was making those mistakes. I was being extremely conservative. So an expert actually looked at that analysis that I did and showed that Sasquatch's head is not 14 inches, it's more like 15 and a half, more like even 16 inches across. So I way erred on the side of caution, which should scare you, because that Sasquatch, Jake's head, was absolutely enormous. And in my eyewitness testimony, and the eyewitness testimony of other people that have seen Sasquatch like that, he's absolutely incredibly large. So keep those proportions in mind in this next analysis. Again, when they size my head up and then start doing an analysis back and forth, because literally my eye is literally a quarter the size of that Sasquatch's eye. So when you make my head as big as a Sasquatch, right? And then you match up the proportions and they're still completely out. What we're going to learn from this, not only how big a Sasquatch skull would be absolutely enormous, but the proportions would be completely out. What does that mean in the DNA? The DNA that shows, and this is not arguable, guys, the DNA that shows that Sasquatch have successfully bred with human beings 9 times and bred back into the population. You got a skull like that. It's literally not different than matching up a Rottweiler's skull with a Chihuahua. You can't breed those. So it's really brought that whole genetic breeding into question in my mind so significantly. So, but let's watch this fantastic, super important analysis. And also you should understand, I'm not going to go into more detail, but I have videos of Kubota and Jane, and they all match these proportions. So the Sasquatch as a species are proportionally this much out, as we'll go through in this analysis, which is so well done, so important. Thank you so much, Nathan Rio, for doing this. Let's get into this real quick.
Hey guys, I just have to do another breakdown of this Todd Standing thing. I have to talk about this publicly or I'll go crazy. So everyone has seen this GIF here. That's Todd Standing there. This is the Sasquatch, and look how it morphs into Todd Standing. Now, a lot of people really find this very, very compelling. In fact, lots of people in the Bigfoot community actually feel like this is solid proof. They'll even go as far as to say this GIF right here of those faces melding together is proof that Todd Standing is wearing a mask. So that's actually very, very interesting. Let's actually think about that for a second. Let's just go really, really basic, really, really logically. All those who believe that that morphing GIF is actually really good evidence that it's a mask, they'll have to say that this is a real mask for a face to go in. They believe that Todd Standing's face is the face that is inside of this mask. So they believe a real person is inside of this mask. Remember these steps, because I have to really break it down so that people will understand how absolutely ludicrous this is. They believe that these eyes are Todd Standing's eyes. Therefore, they believe that these eyes are real eyes. These eyes, the Bigfoot community, the people that are calling Todd Standing a hoaxer, are saying that these eyes in the photo are actually real eyes. If you're going to argue that this is a mask, then you have to argue that those eyes are people's eyes. They're real, so a real living, breathing, biological person. So in other words, those are not taxidermy fake eyes. Okay, do you follow me? Okay. So if you're going to argue that the GIF is good evidence, then you have to argue that this is a mask and that Todd Standing is in the mask, therefore these eyes are real. Okay. Now, my question to you guys who think that this is a mask and think that these eyes are real and it's Todd Standing inside. Do you know of a mask that will come down and touch your eyeballs? I want to talk about Batman for a second. While Christian Bale was in the Batman outfit, he had to wear dark eyeshadow. And why is that? It's because if he had the mask on without the dark eyeshadow, you could see his eyelids and his flesh, and it just looks wrong. This just does not look like Batman. Okay? So, with the mask on, you have to be wearing dark eyeshadow. Why? Because the mask doesn't come all the way to your eyelids. See, the mask doesn't come all the way to the edge of, this is Michael Keaton, it doesn't come all the way to the edge of the eyelids. You'd need a very thin mask that actually adheres to the human skin. It'd be an extremely crazy, huge undertaking to have a mask that actually adheres straight, that goes straight down to the eye. Okay? And we're not even talking about a mask that actually touches the eye. Okay? Because, see, you can see the really bright colored flesh of the inside of the eyelid right here. Alright? Now, even with all this makeup on, notice that you can still see that bright strip of flesh, and you can see the whites of Batman's eyes. Now, they do that because the mask does not come down. It would be extremely uncomfortable if Batman's mask, the plastic mask or the rubber, whatever, actually touched his eyeball. In fact, that would no actor would go for that. That'd be horrible. Okay, my point is that if you're going to say that this is Todd standing in a mask. The mask itself comes all the way down and actually touches his eyeballs. You can't even see the fleshy interior. I mean, you can see the shine, but that's not lighter colored skin. That's actually just the shine. The skin directly around the eyeball is actually dark still. So maybe you could argue that Todd standing, well, actually, you can't argue that Todd standing is wearing makeup around his eyes. I guess you'd have to argue then that Todd standing is this is Todd standing, and that he's wearing contacts that are like really dark and gigantic and cover the whites of his eyes. But then you're going to have to argue that the whites of his eyes would fit in this space. Now look at this, guys. If you argue that Todd Standing is wearing giant contacts, you're trying to tell me that his eyes are very tiny. Look, any way that you argue this, it does not work. There's no possible physical way for a human being to fit inside of this, because the eye span, the structure of the face, and the distance between the eyes is so dramatically different. So where the eyes meet and there's that little red thing, that's called a caruncle. A caruncle, that's that little tiny red bead in the corner, in the inside corner of our eyes. Okay, so from that caruncle, from this corner to that corner, I've measured, and that's about the span, okay? And if you're going to try to argue that the only part of the eye that is visible is Todd's irises, then you have a whole nother problem that I'm going to talk about in a second. My point is that there is literally no possible physical way, it defies the laws of physics, for this to be Todd standing in this mask. Okay, the distance between the eyes. On my last video I said it was 2, but now that I've actually measured it closely, there is almost 3 eye spans in between the eyes on this alleged Sasquatch. Now remember, people think that the eyes are real eyes. In other words, they're not plastic. This isn't a taxidermy thing. People that are arguing that Todd Standing is a hoaxer are also, this is very significant, they are also arguing that these eyes are real, because they're saying it's a mask, so therefore they're arguing that the eyes are real. Okay, so if you believe that Todd Standing is a hoaxer, and you believe in that stupid morphing GIF, then you are literally a walking contradiction. You prove your own self wrong. A lot of people say that there's like a square around the nose, and that it's a prosthetic fake nose. That's freaking stupid. There's nothing to indicate that at all. Some people say that the corner of the mouth is photoshopped wrong. I've looked into that argument. It's stupid as well. It's baseless. There's no good argument that I can see at all. Just period, at all. The only thing that people can say to provide quote unquote evidence that this is fake is to try and attack Todd Standing's character. How is Todd Standing's character, whether his character is good or bad, how does that have any bearing as far as direct evidence that this picture is true or false? That's freaking, guys, the logic, the thought process is so incredibly asinine and juvenile. But if you separate all the emotion and the hatred against him and you just look at the raw stuff that he has provided, it's actually extremely compelling. Not to mention the fact that I've seen 2 Sasquatch that look an awful lot. My second sighting looked almost exactly like this one. We see the Sasquatch's iris is wide, it's all the way out here, and then it starts to go cross-eyed, and both of his irises pull to the center as the GIF morphs. So it does not match at all. The person didn't understand that this little gleam in the Sasquatch's eye was not a white. It was not the white. It was not outside of the iris. See? See how horribly that matches up? This is part of the Sasquatch's iris. I think another funny thing about this is that Todd Standing's face I believe, has been widened. It's been stretched just a little bit. The person who did this probably didn't think anyone would notice, but his face has been stretched just a little bit but it's still, even though I think it's been stretched a little bit, but still, it doesn't match up at all. Now watch how the nose grows. The nose grows, guys, all the way down here. Todd Standing see the Sasquatch, you can see the underside of his nose. The top of the Sasquatch's nose is all the way up here. Todd Standing's nose is all the way down here.
I wanted to interject here really quickly because that is impressive knowledge to know that. When you match a human being's eyes and the mouth, the Sasquatch nose is up higher. So no matter how much they widened my head to make it match in there, but they couldn't stretch it because that would take my proportion out. So even when you're widening my head, the nose to mouth to eye proportions don't match. In fact, they're significantly off. So what that means is, so even though the eyes are matching and the mouth is matching, when you match those two, the nose comes out in a very different spot. So very, very significant and anthropologically very, very important to note that in the morphology of this skull.
Todd Standing's nose is all the way down here. But nobody cares about these details, right? Nobody cares about the details. I think it's hilarious. It is absolutely hilarious. The entire structure of the face changes. The forehead, everything changes. The width of the head actually changes. Look at this. It's just completely hilarious. This GIF is so extremely ridiculous. Lots of people that have had actual sightings, I've never seen this, but lots of people that have had actual sightings have reported 3 wrinkles at the top of the bridge.
I remember seeing, when I looked at his eyes, he had like 3 or 4 wrinkles right at the bridge of his nose, and where the top of his nose and his forehead come together. There was like 3 or 4 distinct skin rolls in that, right there at his brow line.
Okay, so there it is. This Sasquatch, literally nothing at all is wrong with this. Nothing. But people still say it looks fake. I think that's so hilarious. People have reported hair on the nose. Lots and lots of eyewitnesses will tell you there's actual short hair on the nose. Todd Standing got that right. He got the wrinkles. He got the wrinkles right. He got the distance between the eyes right. He got the fact that there's no whites right. He got the sunken eyes, the depth being sunken back in the face. What's happened with Todd Standing? 2 things have happened. Discreditation, premature conclusions. So he's been discredited and people have drawn conclusions. People have been extremely fast and nonsensical in drawing conclusions about this man, okay, and about his claims on pretty much nothing. There's no direct evidence at all that anyone has presented of this being a hoax at all, guys. They will always refer to Todd's character or something that they believe that he did that's dishonest. They just think that he looks like a hoaxer, he acts like a hoaxer. They'll talk about things that he said about the camera, blah, 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 but they won't actually deal with this picture itself, with the footage itself. You have to look at the details. You have to analyze. You have to observe the actual things that are happening. You have to make a prediction, which is what we did in this video. But the critics, they're not doing that. They're just saying dumb stuff like, it looks fake and anyone that believes this is an idiot and a loser and a sheep. So people that use intimidation tactics like that and then scream at you for not thinking critically, avoid those people. They're the ones that aren't thinking critically. And who cares how many people have called Todd Standing a hoaxer? I don't care how many people have said that, and I don't care for how long they've said it. I don't care. What I care about is reality, and reality is that I have seen 2 Sasquatch up close that look, the second sighting I had looked almost exactly like this, And the fourth sighting I had looked very much like this as far as the shape of the head and the profile. All right. Thanks for watching.
Really fantastic work done by Nathan Reel, but this is the critical component that both Amanda and Nathan were missing, is that this is the actual, after proportionately, factually showing how large that Sasquatch's head is based on the pine needle leaves that were in that photograph, Rocky Mountain Douglas pine needle leaves. What we discover, in fact, is this is how big my head is, or any human's head would be in proportion to the Sasquatch. That should blow your mind. Let me put the head right over directly on top. And now, if you're going to try to morph heads, how can you morph that? That's the reality of how a human head would morph in there. This is pretty popular. People are saying that my mouth is exactly like the Sasquatch's mouth. Well, as you can see, the mouth of that Sasquatch is about the same size as my head. So really, really important, amazing evidence, ladies and gentlemen. This is important in the discovery process with Kubota, Jake, and Jane footage that I've personally filmed. They all match up because they're all of the same species, and we're going to find in time, as this discovery proceeds forwards, that all these pieces of evidence are going to add up to substantiate the truth about the discovery of this incredible species that I admire and appreciate so much. Thank you very much for tuning into my video. Again, my name is Todd Standing, and I am the man who takes people out into the field and has them either live interact with or eyewitness the Sasquatch that you're seeing in this footage. So take care, lots more to come.